Lovely. So welcome everyone to the consultation webinar for the Highland Council's proposed Corran Ferry Infrastructure Improvement Scheme. This presentation is supporting the second round of pre-application consultation to engage the community and ask for feedback on the proposal. I'd like to start with introductions from the project team who are with us tonight. So let's start with Andrew, please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Andrew McKeever. I'm a principal engineer with Highland Council, and I'm the project manager for the professional services contract, which has been delivered by Wollaston Consulting Engineers and Afric Environmental Consultants.
And Murray, please.
Thanks, Claire. Good evening, everyone. I'm Murray Bain, Highland Council Corran Ferry Project Manager. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Richard Porteous, Highland Council Operations Manager, Corran Ferry, and been involved with the project for about 6 or 7 years, I guess.
Hi, I'm Gary Smith. I'm Service Lead for Infrastructure for Highland Council.
Hi, good evening. I'm Barry Purcell, representing Wollaston, who have been commissioned to design the infrastructure package on behalf of the Highland Council.
Thanks all, and I'm Claire Williams. I'm a Senior Environmental Consultant for Afric Limited, and we've been engaged to lead the environmental impact assessment and the pre-application consultation as part of the consenting process. So as part of this consultation, we'd like to share with you the case for change, that is the why behind the proposal, a summary of the stakeholder feedback from the previous round of consultation, story of the design development as it's changed since the last consultation, an outline of the proposed scheme design. We'll provide an update on the vessels as they relate to the operations phase of the project. I'll present a summary of the scope of the environmental impact assessment. Then we'll summarise the key messages and outline the next steps of the project. So please note that the consultation resources, so including this presentation recording, the display content from the public events next week, and a feedback questionnaire will be made available on the project's dedicated consultation page with the link there. And these will be made available from next Wednesday, the 19th of June. And I'll hand over to Murray, please.
Hi, thanks, Claire. Yeah, so here we have in front of us the case for change, and the first sort of issue that we've got is that the current ferries are getting old. The Corran's 23 years old, the Maida Glencoe is 49 years old, and in particular the Maida Glencoe is in urgent need of replacement. The infrastructure, so there's a key constraint that narrows there, which it doesn't allow to accommodate the more common vessels you see with the CalMac, the Ro-Ro vessels, and that is a key constraint. And unfortunately, when we had a suspension of service, that key constraint became really apparent. We were unable to borrow a ferry from anywhere in Scotland. Also, the marshalling capacity on the Netherlock Harbour side in particular is far too small. I think it can accommodate about 15 cars, so it's totally undersized for the volume of the traffic, with limited options to expand it. So that creates an issue with traffic backing up onto the 82 at peak periods, and also puts a huge pressure on the crew to react to that traffic backing up by shuttling constantly. A key issue for the crew as well is there's no overnight berth, so the crew have to go in all weathers, navigate from a small flip boat onto the boat, in the dark twice a day. It's all a health and safety issue, albeit it's well managed, but it is something that we need to address. The largest commercial vehicles, that's another issue with the Maida Glencoe. It's too small, so large commercial vehicles can't cross in it, which means effectively the peninsula can be cut off because the road route alternative is on single track road, and it's just not suitable for HGV lorries or indeed for high volumes of traffic. So when she's in service, you've got that double problem that the peninsula is cut off from large HGV lorries getting across. And finally, we've got a national and local commitment for our carbon emissions. So the council must look at low carbon ferry solutions for the project. Thank you.
So round one of pre-application public consultation was held in November and December 2022. And this consultation included a webinar event to local councillors and community council representatives, and 3 public exhibition events held in Ardgour, Fort William and Strontian. So during the first round of consultation, we asked what aspects of the project were most important to stakeholders, and key themes in their responses are shown here. And they included an improved ferry service with less outages, minimising any construction disruption to the ferry service, consideration of visual and landscape impacts, consideration of noise and traffic impacts, improved road safety to the ferry infrastructure, particularly at the junction with the A82, additional public parking and cycle links or bicycle storage, consideration of protected species and the woodland habitat, and effective use of available funding to maintain the ferry service. So we also asked what further information stakeholders would like to see for future engagement, and we've used this to inform the content of the upcoming round of consultation. On the right, in round one, we specifically asked for feedback on early design concepts for the infrastructure. So you can see the 4 designs for an overnight berthing structure at Ardgour that we presented for comment. The project's initial preferred design was option D, which is also favoured by respondents because it tied together the new slipway with the overnight berthing structure. However, with further investigation, option D was found to have considerable construction challenges and costs associated with constructing on a very steep seabed slope that you can see on the far right there. So for Ardgour, we asked for feedback on options of new building locations, and the feedback showed a general preference for reducing new builds and minimising disruption to the village. Finally, we presented 5 conceptual designs for new ferry infrastructure at Corran, and the clear preference from respondents was to develop north of the existing settlement.
So in terms of the design development since the previous pre-application event in December 2022, site studies have been carried out, and these have included the ground investigation works, which have been carried out to inform the design of the appropriate marine structures and foundations required at Corran. The ground investigation works included the benthic survey to identify the extent and features affected by the works, and also helps inform the potential impacts of the infrastructure and key protected habitats within the sediment and seabed for consideration in the environmental impact assessment. Protected species surveys have also been carried out, and these surveys help inform the EIA scoping. In terms of funding, £30 million has been secured from the reallocation of £20 million from the UK government funded element of the Inverness and Highlands City Region deal, and a further £10 million from the Council's capital programme. There's also a funding request submitted for a new electric vessel, which is currently under consideration with the Scottish Government. The infrastructure design at Corran has been developed to consider the key design objectives of improving resilience of the service with new infrastructure and a new electric vessel with charging capability, an infrastructure which provides for straight-through ro-ro vessels to allow interchangeability with other ferries in Scotland, which also improves resilience. The design objectives also include improved operating conditions in poor weather, improved vessel access for crew from a safe, accessible berthing structure rather than a swing mooring, and where practicable, improved marshalling, traffic flow, parking and active travel links. With 30 million funding that has been secured, the preferred options have been developed in line with the previous public stakeholder events and the design objectives, and the scope has been adjusted to provide the essential infrastructure while remaining within the affordability criteria. On the Netherloch Harbour side, the proposals provide a new slipway, breakwater and alignment structure, marshalling area, car parking, toilet, purser's office, footway and cycleway extension, new A82 junction and dredging. On the Argyre slide, the slipway and overnight berthing structures design development options have been dictated by the steep subsea slopes and operability of the ferry in strong currents, which impacts on the suitable locations for these structures at Argyre, and the preferred option proposals provide a new slipway and overnight berthing structure with associated localised road improvements, dredging, demolition of existing pier structure, and power provision for the charging of the new electric vessel. The preferred options provide essential infrastructure associated with maintaining or improving the current ferry service and supporting the introduction of one new electric vessel, a second electric vessel, crew accommodation, ferry office and storage building refurbishments, and upgraded marshalling and parking areas at Argyre have been removed from the current project, considering the need for the effective use of the available funding, which minimises change and disruption to Argyre village. The environmental impact assessment scoping has been undertaken to identify further studies and assessments required to understand potential impacts of the scheme and to inform further design detail. These will be agreed with the Highland Council's planners and the Scottish Government Marine Directorate as part of the scoping process. I'll now pass on to Barry, who will run through the proposed scheme design.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Hopefully you can see on this slide a representation of the overall scheme for the Corran crossing that's being progressed. I'm going to highlight the key features on this slide, and then we've got one slide for each side of the crossing to give you a slightly deeper dive into what the proposals actually are. So on the Netherloch Harbour side, the east side of the crossing, we've got a new junction on the A82, a larger marshalling area with car parking and facilities. We've got a new slipway with an associated alignment structure located behind a rock-armoured breakwater. And we've got a small-ish accommodating dredge pocket to allow the vessels to get in. On the Argyre side, we've got the new overnight berthing structure, which can accommodate 2 vessels. We've got the new slipway, and we've formalised are formalising the space between the slipway and the pier structure. The existing pier is going to be demolished as part of the works, and you can see the sort of ghosted outline of the facilitating dredge pockets. Thanks, Claire. Okay, so on the Argyre side, so this shows a little bit more detail of what we're putting in here. So the overnight pier is primarily required to facilitate safer crew transfer via ramps instead of the swing mooring transfer, which they currently have been having to do for many years. It also allows for bunkering or loading of power and potable water while the vessels are on the berth overnight. And there's a T-head on the outside of it to give the vessels some shelter from the most onerous northeasterlies. There's a dredge to provide sufficient underkeel clearance for the vessels without compromising the infrastructures, neighbouring infrastructure such as seawater outfalls. And the scheme will also require removal of 2 existing but redundant and de-energised subsea cables from the seabed. The dredgerisings that we'll get from the dredge pockets will be used within the scheme as far as practical as fill material for the structures. The existing pier, which needs to be demolished, will, wherever possible, will also be using the arisings for that within the new work. There's a new slipway which is required at a 1 in 8 slope to accommodate new electric vessel and facilitate interchangeability with the Seamal Loch class fleet. It's worth noting that the MV Corran also continues to operate as a standby vessel in the new scheme, but that will require slight modification of the ramps in order to fit the new slipway. There's also a proposal to formalise the footway, road and parking arrangements between the slipway and the overnight berthing structure. For the new electric vessel, we are going to need to upgrade the SSCN network locally, but what you would really see from on the ground is that we would probably require a new substation within the next to the existing substation in the North Corran, at the end of the North Corran cul-de-sac, and then there would be cabling routed from there down the back of the T-head and through the ferry offices to the pier. There's also going to be a purser's kiosk provided on the Argour side to facilitate shore-based staff to manage the shoreside marshalling going forwards. Thanks, Claire. Okay, so on the Netherloch Arbor side, this was also the clear preference from the original PAC event that we had. The Netherloch Arbor structure is primarily located in a site that's remote from the existing settlement, so it's sitting to the north of the existing slipway and buildings. The junction has been sited to maximise visibility for vehicles and now includes deceleration and acceleration tapers, plus a central ghost lane for turning vehicles in accordance with the MRB. The marshalling area is being provided with a capacity of about 80 cars, which is about 2.5 times the capacity of the new electric vessel, to reduce the risk, and this is primarily to reduce the risk of vehicles impacting on the A82 during peak busy periods. The marshalling area also includes a purser's kiosk, but it also has car parking for vehicles, including oversized vehicles, disabled provision, and also some EV car charging points. There's a cycle shelter and a toilet facility building also within the car park area, and the toilet facility in particular includes obviously toilets and shelter for pedestrians, plus a disabled toilet and a changing places toilet. The slipway, as on the Argour side, is 1 in 8, as mentioned earlier. But importantly, on this side, we've included an alignment structure for the vessel to sort of berth against as it comes into the slipway. And the alignment structure is further protected from southwesterlies, which are the most onerous direction for the berth on that side, by a rock-armoured breakwater. We also require a slightly more modest dredge on this side to facilitate access for both of the vessels which will be using the slipway. And once again, the arisings will be able to be reused within the works. Finally, we've got a shared use footway, cycleway, which connects the new terminal area to the existing National Cycle Network and footways, with a route provided essentially alongside the 82. But we also include some cut-through steps so that you don't have to walk all the way around by the road, but you can cut down to the toilet facility via a set of steps. I'll now pass on to Richard for an overview of the proposed new electric vessel. Thank you.
Hello, yes. So delighted to be able to talk about the summary of the new vessel design. So you can see there on the right the deck plan, which shows 4 rows of 7 cars, giving 28 plus 2 at each end, which is 32 in total. And the sort of upper image shows the length of 2 Arctics for the deck. And the bottom picture is the side profile, and it's exciting to me to see the green logo on there, proudly displaying zero emissions at the forefront of renewable technology. So the text there says, a new electric vessel is proposed to operate as the primary vessel in the service, which it will do. Highland Council are working with Caledonian Maritime Assets, CMAL Limited, to procure a new vessel, and that's through the small vessel replacement programme of which we're a part. So they have 7 vessels planned, we have 1, and they have another 3 planned after that. The design for a new electric ferry, specifically for the Corran service, is now complete. As I said, 32 cars, and that's 4 more than the MV Corran, and she'll become the relief vessel. And so the relief vessel will have twice the capacity as it used to, because, of course, the maid only takes 14. So electric-powered vessel technology minimises operational carbon emissions in line with Highland Council policies and the Scottish Government's commitment of achieving net zero by 2045. She will have an onboard diesel generator as contingency. And the new vessel is expected to be brought into service either 27 or 28. Depending on funding and the small vessel replacement programme. And obviously, in order to power her and her battery propulsion, SSEN need to provide the power to Ardgour. So work on that in the background is already well underway. It's not just an issue for them to provide power to us, but obviously all the other vessels in the small vessel replacement programme. So it's a big project for them, and they're already allocating significant resources to taking that project forward, and we're working closely with them and CMAL on that. The note at the bottom there is just a wee note that the Corran to work on the new slipways will require some modification to her ramps. Basically, that's the shoe under the ramp, which is angled to sit on the slipway. So our slipway is shallower than the new ones. There'll be 1 in 8 to give standardisation with all of the other West Coast slipways that CMAL operate. So in the design, it's all about standardisation so that and collaboration, so we get the economies of scale through working with the small vessel replacement project rather than out on our own, and standardisation on vessel design of components and outfitting, everything, so that in future, again, we won't be so exposed when it comes to maintenance of the vessel. So suppliers and servicing agents will not be hard to come by, because they will be servicing all of these new vessels. So that's some peace of mind as well. Okay, I think that's the end of the slide. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Richard. So in terms of consenting, the proposal will require planning permission and marine licensing, and applications for these consents will be supported by Environmental Impact Assessment, or EIA. Over the last few months, the project has undergone a scoping process to identify the topics that will then be assessed in detail for the EIA. And scoping also starts the process of identifying mitigation to reduce potential impacts to people or the environment. So outcomes of the EIA, we're keen to share in the next round of consultation, which I'll discuss more in a little bit later. But key assessments of the environmental impacts are scheduled to include an assessment on in-air noise, where noise surveys to identify background noise levels will be undertaken, and then modelling of construction and operational noise. Carbon calculations to quantify the carbon dioxide equivalent of materials and construction transport. Landscape and visual impacts, and this is done by creating photo montages where pictures of the design are superimposed onto the landscape, and these two will be communicated at the next round of public consultation. A traffic and transport impact assessment will be done to understand impacts of construction and operational traffic, and an assessment of potential impacts on marine mammals and fish through an underwater noise study.
You've gone on to mute there somehow.
Clear your microphones off. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you. So I was just saying there's more for the EIA. We will look at impacts on benthic habitats and ecology, so that is species that live on the seabed. It will consider impacts on local businesses from both construction and operational phases of the project. The EIA will also look at the impact of removing a portion of the woodland under the development on the Corran side, and identifying a planting plan to compensate for the tree removal and assessing any potential impacts on protected species that use this habitat. The EIA will also consider dredging activities and archaeology and cultural heritage, which will be informed by a site walkover survey to be done later this month. So as we can see, the EIA will assess a variety of impacts to both people and the environment. It also identifies those key mitigation actions to either reduce potential negative impacts as far as practicable, and also maximise the beneficial outcomes of the project as far as practical. So key findings, as I said, we'll share in the next round of public consultation, and the EIA in full will be made publicly available at the time of the planning and marine licence applications. And I'll hand back to Richard, please.
Hi, good to be back. So yes, I'm delighted to be able to present the summary slide here, which summarises the proposal. We've noted elements there around the slide in no particular order, but three main themes. And the main one, or initial one, of course, being improved service resilience. In replacing our new assets, standardized assets, giving us that contingency and the efficiencies that we mentioned earlier. And the second theme, of course, being safety improvements. One key one, particularly for us operationally, is eliminating the vessel-to-vessel crew transfer that we have to do every day out in the launch to the mooring in all weathers. People forget, but sometimes the reason the service goes off is because we can't do that operation safely in the prevailing conditions. So we're eliminating that by building a berth. So that's number one in terms of safety. And obviously the move to a different location for the slipway on the Netherloch Harbour side, that will be more out of the current and out of that very windy corner as well, where the current slipway is on that side. So hopefully we'll be able to operate in improved conditions, in an improved range of conditions from the new slipway on that side as well, particularly with the alignment structure and the breakwater as well. And then, of course, the other safety improvement is the safer access on the A82, onto the A82 at that side. And the larger marshalling area will help to reduce congestion that we experience at the moment by providing a marshalling area that's fit for purpose, by being considerably larger. Up 80 cars or thereabouts in the new one, and the current one, as you know, is really not fit for purpose on that side. So that's the safety element to it, and the improved resilience through the new assets, as we said. So very, very exciting times, and of course, it's not just exciting, but a comfort, hopefully, that we'll have that resilience going forward. And of course, the icing on the cake is the green technology. We wouldn't have got the funding if it wasn't for the green technology. That's the way forward, and yeah, that's also exciting because it's relatively new to Scotland, certainly. So we are leading the way along with CMAL. It's not new technology. It's being delivered and operating for a long time now in other parts of the world, and in the Northern Hemisphere, Scandinavia in particular. So it's proven technology and it's advancing all the time. Of course, it's in the wider context of renewables developing. So yeah, it's exciting in that respect as well. Okay, thanks, Claire.
Great, thanks again. So what's next for the project? We're heading into round 2 of public consultation, and feedback from this consultation will be considered as the infrastructure design develops with further detail. Site studies of the EIA are being scheduled to inform the detailed impact assessment, and findings from that EIA will actually be fed back into the detailed design. So an example of this might be the findings of the traffic assessment may result in minor adjustments for the road junction design. A third round of public consultation that I've mentioned has been tentatively scheduled for September this year. So once confirmed, this date will be advertised, and we'll be looking to share the photo montages of the final design and also key outcomes and mitigation from the EIA to describe how the potential impacts will be managed. Consent applications for planning permission and marine licenses will be submitted to the consenting authorities, that is the Highland Council's Planning Department and the Marine Directorate. And that's also scheduled for January next year. These applications, as I mentioned, will be supported by the full EIA and also a report summarising feedback from all 3 rounds of public consultation, including responses on how the project has considered the stakeholder feedback. At the time of consent application, that this documentation will become publicly available, and the authorities will actually consent on the proposal prior to their determination. Subject to the award of all consents, construction is scheduled to commence in October 2025 and construction works to be complete by the end of 2026. And now we'd like to hear your thoughts and queries on the proposal. So a reminder, this presentation recording and a link to the feedback questionnaire will be available on the consultation website from the 19th of June. Please note that representations made to the Highland Council or AFRIC Limited are not representations made to Scottish ministers or the Highland Council's Planning Department, but there will be opportunity for representations to these consenting authorities once the planning and marine licensing applications have been submitted. So thank you for your time. We will now stop the recording.